Gary Burghoff's portrayal of Radar O'Reilly in MASH remains one of the most beloved characters in television history. However, the man behind the character's innocent and sweet nature went through much more than fans realized. In 1970, Robert Altman's MASH film introduced Gary to the role of Radar, a young and sensitive army clerk. Burghoff, a relatively unknown stage actor at the time, brought a unique sincerity to the role. His portrayal stood out amid the chaos of war, offering an emotional anchor for the film. When CBS adapted the film into a television series in 1972, Gary was the only actor asked to reprise his role. Although he was hesitant, fearing the show's potential shift from raw satire to something more sanitized, Gary accepted the role, seeing it as an opportunity to further develop the character that had already touched so many lives. A character stuck in innocence. As MASH * evolved into one of the most profound TV shows of its time, Gary Burghoff's Radar remained the emotional core of the series. The character's childlike innocence stood out against the darker themes of the show, especially during the Vietnam War. Fans adored Radar's bashful nature, his ability to hear helicopters before anyone else, and his ever-present teddy bear. Yet, as the show progressed, Gary began to feel the weight of being typecast. Radar's character was forever locked in innocence, a role that never evolved, even as the other characters deepened and grew. The pressure to maintain Radar's boyish charm and purity became suffocating. The public loved him for it, but for Gary, it was becoming increasingly difficult to separate his own self from the character. His perfectionism, which had initially made him a great actor, now made him feel trapped. Growing tensions. Behind the scenes. While MASH was known for its camaraderie, the behind-the-scenes relationships weren't always as harmonious as they appeared. Tension between Gary and his co-stars began to surface as the show entered its middle seasons. One of the most notable rifts occurred between Gary and Wayne Rogers, who played trapper John McIntyre. Initially, the two had a great on-screen chemistry, but their differing working styles eventually caused friction. Gary, who was emotional and perfectionistic, would often question dialogue or ask for extra takes. Rogers, on the other hand, was more methodical and impatient with the delays, which caused tension to build on set. This reached a breaking point during a particularly contentious scene rewrite. Wayne's frustration culminated in a moment where he slammed a chair across the set in anger, an outburst that would change their relationship forever. The two remained professional, but the atmosphere had undeniably shifted. Creative differences and growing frustration. By the time MASH entered its 4th season, Gary Burghoff began to feel increasingly sidelined. Alda, who had become the show's creative force, co-wrote scripts and directed episodes, shaping the series' evolving political tone. Meanwhile, Radar's innocence remained static, and Gary struggled to introduce new layers to the character. When he suggested changes to Radar's storyline, Alda often vetoed them, seeking to maintain the show's delicate balance. Gary felt this as a personal rejection, while Alda viewed it as a professional necessity. The growing creative differences between the two actors led to a strained relationship. Gary, who was already battling exhaustion and frustration, became more withdrawn. His role was shrinking, and the passion he once felt for Radar began to fade. As the show shifted in tone, Gary found it harder to reconcile his own desires with the direction MASH * was taking. The breaking point. Deciding to leave. By 1979, Gary had reached a breaking point. The grueling schedule, the emotional toll of his role, and his growing disillusionment with Hollywood led him to decide that it was time to leave MASH. The long shooting days, combined with the pressure to maintain Radar's innocent persona, had taken a toll on both his personal life and his mental health. His marriage was struggling, and he barely saw his young children. After season 7, Gary informed producers that he wanted to leave the show, but they convinced him to stay on for a proper send-off. The writers crafted a 2-part farewell for his character, where Radar would leave the 477th after his uncle's death. Gary agreed to stay, but he still struggled with the idea of saying goodbye to a character that had come to define him for so many years. The farewell that almost ruined everything. The filming of Radar's farewell episode became a moment of great creative tension between Gary and the director. Charles S. Dubin, who had been with the show since the beginning, envisioned Radar's departure as understated and quiet. Radar, who had always been the source of comfort and innocence, would simply walk away, leaving without fanfare. Gary, however, warnings to fight the tears. Gary pushed through the tears and delivered a powerful performance that left the audience in awe. Despite the challenges, Gary's dedication to his craft and his ability to connect with the audience on a deep level made him a standout performer. Warnings to fight the tears. Gary pushed forward with his vision. When the scene was filmed, it felt forced and melodramatic, failing to capture the quiet elegance that Dubin had intended. Gary, mortified by the result, admitted his mistake and requested a reshoot, which led to the more restrained version of Radar's farewell. This version, where Radar simply walks away, became one of the most haunting moments in television history. A difficult departure and the aftermath. Gary's departure from MASH was met with mixed reactions. While the episode itself was praised by fans and critics alike, tabloid rumors soon emerged about Gary's difficult behavior on set. Headlines painted him as moody, demanding, and even arrogant. But the truth was far more nuanced. Gary had been worn down by the constant demands of fame and the pressure to maintain the image of the lovable Radar. He had become exhausted, both emotionally and physically, and needed a change. In interviews later, Gary explained that he had always struggled with the expectations placed on him. The Radar character was pure and good, but Gary himself was just a human being, and trying to live up to that ideal was taking a toll. His co-stars, many of whom understood the pressure he was under, supported his decision, even if they didn't always agree with it. Life after MASH, a quiet legacy. After leaving MASH, Gary Burghoff largely retreated from the Hollywood spotlight. He made a few guest appearances on television and even starred in a short-lived spin-off pilot, Walter, in 1984. However, he resisted the fame machine. Preferring a quieter life away from the cameras, Gary turned to other creative pursuits, including painting, wildlife conservation, and mentoring young actors. He settled into a more private life in California, far from the constant media attention that had once consumed him. His focus shifted to humanitarian work, and in 2018, he appeared in a YouTube video with his children to raise money for victims of California's wildfires. Gary's life after MASH was a far cry from the public persona of Radar, but in many ways, it felt like the real Gary. Soft-spoken, caring, and quietly devoted to his family and causes close to his heart. A legacy of peace and reflection. Today, Gary Burghoff remains a beloved figure for his portrayal of Radar O'Reilly, but his legacy is one of peace and personal growth. Despite the difficult rumors that once surrounded his departure from MASH, Gary's co-stars and the public now understand the toll that fame took on him. Alda, who had once been at odds with Gary, spoke fondly of their shared work on the show, praising Gary's contribution as the heartbeat of the series. The so-called feud between the two actors was less about animosity and more about creative differences, pressure, and the complexities of working on a show that was both a critical success and a cultural phenomenon. Gary's departure from the show, while difficult, allowed Radar to remain an eternal symbol of innocence and kindness. Final thoughts. A quiet hero. Gary Burghoff's portrayal of Radar O'Reilly is a lasting gift to television, but the man behind the character was much more than just the boyish clerk with the teddy bear. His struggles, both on and off the screen, reveal a human being who was deeply sensitive, emotionally invested, and ultimately exhausted by the expectations placed on him. While he may have been misunderstood by some, in hindsight, Gary's decision to leave MASH was one of personal growth and authenticity. He wasn't just acting out the role of Radar, he was living it, feeling the burden of his character's purity. In the end, it wasn't about fame or accolades. It was about finding peace with himself. Gary Burghoff's quiet legacy is a reminder that sometimes the greatest performances happen off-screen.